Brian Knapp, and welcome to this week's installment of Image Reflects, where we take a few moments to dig deeper into what Pastor Chris shared with us in his sermon this past Sunday. For those who've been meeting with us in person or online, you'll know we are presently going through the book of James, looking at a faith that works. This last Sunday was week 4 of the series, and we looked at James chapter 1, verses 19 through 21. I'd like to read those verses for you now, and then take a closer look at one phrase that really stuck out to me as Chris read through this passage Sunday morning. Let's read. Know this, my beloved brothers. Let every person be quick to hear, slow to speak, slow to anger. For the anger of man does not produce the righteousness of God. Therefore put away all filthiness and rampant wickedness, and receive with meekness the implanted word which is able to save your souls. One thing that I learned early on studying the Bible was to always be on the lookout for connector words, words that connect one verse or one phrase to another. Well, there's a really important one at the beginning of verse 20, F-O-R, for. When you see for, it means the writer is about to give you the reason for what they just told you. Now, I don't know about you, but I love it when the Bible tells me the reason for what it just told me. Those of you who know me know I'm into philosophy a bit. And one of the things philosophers love to do is ask the question, why? Why are we here? Why do we act the way we act? Why should we be quick to hear, slow to speak, and slow to anger? Well, in verse 20, James answers that very question for us. So let's read it again. For the anger of man does not produce the righteousness of God. So why should we be quick to hear, slow to speak, and slow to anger? Well, it's because when we get angry, especially in the context of not listening sufficiently and maybe talking way too soon, when we get angry, what comes of that is not the righteousness of God. So what does come from that type of response? Well, if it's not the righteousness of God, then it's sin, is it not? Responding rashly without taking the time to listen to what others have to say, or perhaps thinking through what you've heard them say or seen them do, leads to sinful actions. Actually, Chris gave a really great example of this on Sunday when he spoke about how Peter took a swing at a soldier and ended up chopping his ear off. Peter's action did not lead to the righteousness of God. In fact, notice that James qualifies for us just what kind of anger does this. It's not God's anger. No, it's the anger of man. For the anger of man does not produce the righteousness of God. Take notice here because God is giving us an insight into sinful human nature. Not only is he instructing us how to act, but he's telling us why we should act that way. And that's a pretty important thing for us because it's not all that often we get the why answered for us. If we were obedient to God's word, then we would just do what he said without asking why. We'd make it a point to listen to others speak, especially God. We'd make it a point to hold off speaking, especially when we've not done that first thing we were told to do. And we'd learn to control the anger that wells up within us, specifically because we didn't do numbers 1 and 2. But we aren't always obedient to God. Sometimes reading God's command isn't enough, and God knows this. Sometimes he takes that extra step of telling us why, even though he's under no obligation to do so, because he knows it will help us. God has chosen not only to reveal how we should approach listening and speaking, he's actually told us in advance what the consequences will be if we don't obey. If we get angry in this situation, then it is by definition the anger of man, and therefore will result in sin. So let's be thankful to God for giving us the why, even though he didn't need to. Let's make it a point to slow down, be patient, listen, keep our mouths shut, and avoid the anger of man. I hope this has been helpful, and I look forward to seeing you this Sunday in Image.